Hi, this is Kamera. My first few minutes with God, day 70, Deuteronomy chapter 1 and 2. So we are in a brand new book. Moses is addressing the children of Israel. This is 40 years after they had left Mount Sinai. And he's telling the children of Israel basically a summary of their journey, what God had instructed them to do, and the things they had done, and just some of their experiences from Mount Sinai to now. He tells them that journey should have taken them more than that, like 11 days. And he goes over how when they were at Mount Sinai, they were there for a very long time. God told them to get and go to this land that I promised your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. He was going to give that land to their descendants. And he tells them what land they're supposed to get. So he tells them to go. So once Moses went through so much with these children of Israel, we read it all. But he tells them during this address here that you guys were a heavy burden, because they murmur, complain, they always had issues, and they were a heavy burden to Moses. So Moses let them know that I had to appoint leaders of you guys, judges, because the burden was so heavy. And he says, he goes on to tell them that I had to teach them or tell them how to judge you guys as well, how to judge, to listen and judge fairly. And he felt like he had to tell them, I guess, but he told them. And he says, I would only handle the very difficult situations, the difficult cases. And he says that when we got to our destination, I told you guys, go and occupy that land that God has given you. Just go in there and take it. But you guys decided you want to send some scouts to explore the land. So I went ahead and agreed, picked 12 people, and I sent them out to scout the land. Back in the earlier, we remember God saying, go ahead and send 12. So we see that it was the children of Israel who felt they needed to have someone scout the land first and see the inhabitants and how good the land was. The scouts came back and they told them that land is very good. But the scouts also told them about the inhabitants of the land. And that put a lot of fear in the people. They were discouraged and they rebelled against God. God got angry. Moses tried to encourage the people. Go ahead, take the land. God is with you. He's been protecting you. He fights for you. He's gone ahead of you. But you were too discouraged, and God got angry. And he put his foot down and said that you guys are not going into that land. None of you, except for Caleb, because Caleb was the only faithful one. And he goes on to say a little bit more about Caleb. And then he tells them, I can't even go into the promised land because I allowed you guys to get me upset. And I can't even go. And God told me that Joshua is going to be the one that leads you guys into this promised land. So he goes over that and he talks about how God had told them to turn back around and to wander around in the land, in the wilderness, how some of the people still decided they want to go to the promised land after God told them don't go, still being rebellious. And he tried to encourage them. They didn't listen. And we read that too. But Moses letting them know how it got to the point where they had to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And then Moses talks about how they wandered around and eventually, after the last person 38 years later, how the last few people had died and God had sent them back in that direction of the promised land, and how he told them how to respect certain lands. Don't bother anyone in that land. Those are Esau's descendants. Those are lost descendants. Don't bother them. If you eat anything, you pay them for whatever you touch, but don't bother those people. And then he talks also about the victories that they had experienced, and they were there for those victories. But there you have it, guys. Day 70, Deuteronomy chapter 1 and 2. You have a God-filled, blessed day.